Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video. I am apologizing because I could not upload at a sooner time. I had a lot of technical difficulties with my mic, but everything seems to be okay now. But today we are going to be talking about professional victims in the UFC. Now, using the word victim is the last thing I would use to describe a professional fighter, but some of these guys have just displayed some key attributes that I would describe as victim-like, because they are incapable of winning a fight, let alone harming their opponent. And overall, they are just known for getting brutally slimed out within the first or second round with no resistance. And we're just going to be talking about all of these guys. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so before we start this list, I want to make a disclaimer. Please do not go around challenging any of these guys to a street fight. Although I call them victims in this video, they would most likely fuck anybody up, including myself, because, again, they are professional fighters in the UFC. With that disclaimer being said, though, let's start off our list with number 15, Roman Dolidze. Now, Roman Dolidze, he's not completely awful, but he is not the greatest middleweight of all time. He just looks completely mid against anybody who has athleticism or any sort of technique in the wrestling. And that's ultimately Roman Dolidze's problem. Unless he can fluke a win off of K-guard, which is his signature move, I've never seen Roman Dolidze really being able to strike at a high level, other than when he's fighting Anthony Smith, but we'll talk about Anthony Smith later in this video. He does have a solid chin, though. I will give him credit for that. I've yet to see Roman Dolidze get slimed out, but the problem is he just gets bitched around. Like Fluffy Hernandez, Christian Leroy Duncan, these guys, they're solid competition, I will admit that, but at the same time, though, if you're like a ranked caliber middleweight, can you not be getting totally bitched by Christian Leroy Duncan and Anthony Hernandez? You know, like, at one point, this guy came in as an undefeated prospect with a lot of hype just because he's from Georgia. But unlike Merab and Ilya Deboria, Roman Dolidze has not shown any sort of capabilities of becoming an elite-level mixed martial artist, because if he can't just submit you off his guard, then he'll turn into a victim because he does not offer anything else technically. Now, moving on to Cody Brundage, I know that a lot of people might consider him as complete trash, and I understand that, but he can make a fight pretty tricky to win. Like, Bo Nickel, Mansour Abdulmalik, decent prospects in the middleweight division have struggled against Cody Brundage before finding the finish. The ultimate problem with Cody Brundage, however, is that he's just known for quitting at the first sign of adversity. Whenever he gets hit with a good shot, he's immediately shooting for the legs and then just getting back of the head TKO'd, because Cody Brundage, he's just like holding on to dear life, waiting for the ref to step in so he can get a free DQ win. And he's also allergic to winning legitimately. Like, every time he has a chance to do so, Cody Brundage will find a way to fumble the bag. Like in his last fight with Dante Johnson, like, it was a very close fight, and Cody Brundage did look good in there. But at the same time, though, like, because his body language wasn't exactly the best whenever Dante Johnson hit him, he ultimately lost a round, even though he landed more of the significant number of strikes. But either way, though, Cody Brundage, like, I understand that why people call him awful, but I don't think he's complete garbage like a lot of people think. But make no mistake, Cody Brundage, he low-key looks like a victim at times, and he gets treated by those who are like decent prospects on the come-up like an actual victim in the later rounds of a fight. Moving on to Alex Morono. Again, another guy who can make a fight tricky against decent levels of competition, but Alex Morono, at the end of the day, he is a victim nonetheless. The problem with Alex Morono, he has no athletic capabilities compared to his opponent. Like, I've seen Morono try to implement takedowns, strikes. He's just so slow and weak, though, so it just never seems to work. He also lost to Nico Price, who will be featured on this list. And if you're losing to Nico Price, safe to say I can call you a victim in the UFC, because the only people Nico Price can beat as of late are people like Alex Morono, and outside of that, guys like Nico Price get slimed out in the first round. Again, we'll talk about him more later on in the video. But regardless, though, Alex Morono, he can make it a tough out at times. You know, Daniil Donchenko had a hard time trying to knock him out in the first round. But for the most part, whenever I watch Alex Morono fight, he just looks like a victim out there because he has no athletic capabilities and he has no ability to harm his opponents. Moving on, we got Ricky Turcios. Now, same thing with all the guys above. Ricky Turcios can make a fight tricky at times, but again, he has no ability to harm his opponents. And the difference between Ricky Turcios and the guys above, at least the guys above can look like they want to engage offense. Whereas Ricky Turcios, I've never watched him like be enthusiastic to try and engage any sort of offensive strikes or takedowns. It just feels like Ricky Turcios is out there for a paycheck, and he does not want to fight in the first place, though. Like, that's my ultimate problem with Ricky Turcios. You can still argue, though, that he should be below guys like Cody Brundage and Alex Morono, because he can make it tricky against decent levels of competition like Raul Rosas Jr., Alberto Montes, Bernardo Sopage. But at the end of the day, though, like Ricky Turcios, I've yet to see him actually engage with an opponent enthusiastically or like willingly, and he just gets slimed out in nearly every single one of his fights, more so than guys like Cody Brundage and Alex Morono. Moving on to number 11, I got Lucas Bresky. He went 1-5 in the UFC heavyweight division, and we all know how shit the heavyweight division is. And the problem with Lucas Bresky, he just gets repeatedly slimed out by heavyweights who are not even ranked caliber. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can name you Mick Porkin, Ryan Spann. Hell, I think he even lost to a Tafa, bro. Like, that's how awful Lucas Bresky has looked. Like, if you're losing to a Tafa, bro, be a KO, I don't know what to tell you. The only win, though, he has on the roster is against Walter Walker. And Walter Walker is actually really good. So that's the only thing that's saving him from the top 10 of the victims list. So while I do believe that Walter Walker should have beat Lucas Bresky, and it is kind of a bad look that Walter Walker didn't beat Lucas Bresky, the fact that Bresky did beat him technically, I do think that's a good aging win. And overall, like, because of that, I'm not going to put him at the top 10 of my list. Now we are moving on to the true victims of the UFC. At number 10, I got Anshul Jubli, the redeemed himself. You know, a lot of people might put him up higher on the list, maybe at least top 3. But here's the thing about Anshul Jubli. He's only went 0-2 in the UFC, all right? And sure, he got redeemed by Quillen Salkilda in 19 seconds, and he got barked at by Mike Breeden before Breeden walked him down. But that's only 2 losses, alright? The guys above him on this list, they have been slimed out more often than Anshul Jubli. I kind of miss Anshul Jubli low-key because, again, he hasn't fought since the Quillen Salkilda loss. But either way, though, I do think that Anshul Jubli has potential to move up the victims GOAT list. But the only reason I can't move him up right now is because he's only had 2 fights in the UFC. But if he gets slimed out by someone like bottom of the barrel like Shamrock, then I might consider moving him up to the top 3. But until he has shown any sort of activity and where he gets repeatedly slimed out over and over again, I can't put him up higher than the number 10 spot on my victims GOAT list. At number 9, I got Weston Wilson. He's incapable of defending himself on the feet. I understand that he's a professional MMA fighter and he will probably beat my ass up. But whenever I watch him in the UFC, again, he just cannot defend himself. I really struggle to comprehend how he's just this defenseless whenever he's up against the cage. Like, I watch him get teed off, and his coach is like, "Hands up, Wilson, hands up." And he doesn't have his hands up, and he just lets the opponent just tee off on him. It's kind of sad. But at the same time, though, that's Weston Wilson's entire career. He just gets victimized by anybody who's half decent on the feet. And he can fluke a submission from time to time. I do know that he has the ability to fluke a submission. But I think over the last couple of years, He's just been getting slimed out over and over again in the first round. I think he's had 3 losses in total, and his 1 win is against Jekka Sergi, who we'll talk about later in this video. But either way, the Weston Wilson, he can fluke a submission out of nowhere, but realistically, he has no athletic capabilities, and he just gets repeatedly slimed out by anybody who's UFC caliber when it comes to the striking. Now, number 8, we got Antonio Tricoli. This guy, you might be surprised because he's went 0-4 in the UFC. You know, some people might argue that he should be in the top 5, but he's more durable than you think. Like, sure, he gets standing guillotined by Mansour Abdulmalik and Tresean Gore, but he is very hard to knock out. Like Montrez Kondrovicius in his last fight, he couldn't knock out Tricoli, and Kondrovicius was looked at as a crazy knockout artist in the regional scene. And not only that, he also fought Shara Bullet, and Shara Bullet took to the 3rd round in order to knock out Antonio Tricoli. The problem with Antonio Tricoli, though, is that even when he has opportunities to win, he is incapable of harming opponents, let alone winning the fight. Again, there's a reason why he's 0-4 throughout his UFC run. And the fact that he's still signed in the UFC after losing to Montrez Kondrovicius is a disgrace. I honestly don't understand how Tricoli still is signed on the roster. But either way, though, Antonio Tricoli, although he looks very athletic, he's 6 feet 5 inches tall for middleweight, which is actually really big. He has not used any of those physical attributes to win a fight because, again, he's just completely bitch-made and a victim in the UFC. At number 7, I put Nico Price, a.k.a. the Dodo Bird himself. Again, incapable of harming opponents, expected to be brutally slimed out or ragdolled via the grappling, and he got slimed out by even other washed fighters like 42-year-old Robbie Lawler and Nikolai Veretetnikov. I just do not think Nico Price is all that good. I think that Nico Price should retire after he gets ragdolled and submitted by Michael Chiesa. And let's be honest here, Michael Chiesa isn't even the best right now. I think that Michael Chiesa would lose to anybody who shows any sort of youth and athleticism. But that's not Nico Price. Nico Price will ultimately lose. He, again, incapable of harming opponents, cannot wrestle, cannot grapple, cannot even strike without getting slimed out in the process, alright? That's basically Nico Price in the year 2026, which is why I have him this high up on my list. At number 6, though, we got Matt Schnell. He's just known for repeatedly getting KO'd at flyweight. Like, it's one thing to get repeatedly KO'd over and over again, but at flyweight, that is not a great look. And you can't even say now that submitting Matt Schnell is all that special because he's also been ragdolled a couple of times here and there if he didn't get immediately KO'd at the first exchange. The only people Matt Schnell can beat is bottom of the barrel flyweights, but anybody who has any sort of talent on the come up, they should easily dispatch of Matt Schnell. You know, Steve Erceg knocked out Matt Schnell. And we all thought that Steve Erceg had actual KO power because he knocked out Matt Schnell. That's how weak Matt Schnell's chin is. He's the only guy who got knocked out by Steve Erceg, alright? So I feel like Matt Schnell, his offense is okay, but whenever he gets hit, or whenever he gets taken down, Matt Schnell just looks like a helpless victim because he's probably going to get slimed out after the opponent takes him down or throws one punch to his chin, and Matt Schnell is face planted on the canvas. At number 5, we got Austin Lane. Very similar career path to Lucas Bresky. Both went 1-5 in the UFC, but the difference is Austin Lane's only win in the UFC is against Robelis de Spain, and we all know that Robelis de Spain is dog shit. You would figure a 6 feet 6 inch tall heavyweight would be able to damage his opponents. But unfortunately, I've yet to see Austin Lane do that. Again, his one win against Robelis de Spain, he didn't even throw any significant strikes in that fight. He just kind of held down de Spain because de Spain has never rolled on the mats in his life. Anytime he's fighting whatever power puncher, even though bottom tier ones, he's always finding a way to get slimed out. in the first or second round, and that's basically this career of Austin Lane. He even moved down to light heavyweight, and he got done even worse there by Iwo Barnowski. So for that reason, I have to include Austin Lane in the top 5, although he is a very athletic specimen. He's 6 feet 6 inches tall. He's just big for no reason, and so far throughout his UFC career, he has been getting slimed out repeatedly over the last couple of years. Moving on, we got Rafael Sequeira. Alright, also someone who went 0-4 in the UFC, but the difference is, Rafael Sequeira is known for being brutally slimed out within the first minute of the fight. You know, he got slimed out by Ibo Aslan, who is not good. Modestas Bukauskas, who is good, but he doesn't have crazy finishing potential. And Abdul Rahman Yakayev, who I am high on, but I don't know how good he is because his only win in the UFC is against Rafael Sequeira. And the problem with Rafael Sequeira is even if he survives the initial beatdown, he cannot grapple. Like, I watched Julius Walker, who's not even the best prospect himself. I watched Julius Walker just ragdoll him and have his way with him for 3 rounds. And the fact that Julius Walker couldn't finish Rafael Sequeira in the first round, like, we automatically assumed that he was a fraud because of that. So, unfortunately for Rafael Sequeira, I put him at the top 5 of my list. He's just known for getting slimed out within the first minute. And even if he doesn't, he just loses every single one of his fights by getting out grappled. So yeah, I don't know how Rafael Sequeira managed to get into the UFC. But he was coming in as an 11-0 prospect. But fortunately, like, we kind of quickly figured out that at the end of the day, Rafael Sequeira is absolute cheeks. Moving on, we got Jose Medina. Now, Jose Medina is the only fighter that ever fought in the UFC that went 0-5 before getting cut. And Jose Daniel Medina, I would call him a chin merchant, but he's been knocked out multiple times in the UFC. Alright, I don't know if I even can call him a chin merchant like a Brian Ortega or a Marlon Vera. At least those guys have never been knocked out. But Jose Daniel Medina has been chinned multiple times in the first round. And that's his strength, you know, being able to take a beating. And the only reason why the UFC kept him on the roster for this long was because he's the only fighter to get signed out of Bolivia. I hate to break it to Bolivian fans, if Jose Daniel Medina is the best you can produce, then I think the UFC should just give up on trying to build a market in Bolivia, because Jose Daniel Medina is just trash. Like, I can't believe he got signed to the UFC roster at one point. But unfortunately for Jose Daniel Medina, because he's trash, I cannot rate him as a UFC caliber fighter. And because of that, he is automatically top 3 on the Victims GOAT list. Now, moving on to number 2, I got Jeka Sergi. Jeka Sergi arguably can be considered the worst fighter of all time, because he got slimed out by Weston Wilson and Anshul Jubli, 2 top 10 victims on my victims list. And whenever he's not getting victimized by the victims, he's getting face planted in 30 seconds by Drew Sang-yu. He somehow has a win in the UFC, but I think it's just the fact that the other guy that he's fought was also absolute cheeks. And he's gone 1-3 in the UFC over his 4-fight career. So, Jeka Sergi, within 4 fights, I think he has cemented himself as the worst fighter of all time. You can't be getting slimed out by Weston Wilson and Anshul Jubli and expect to be a good martial artist, because I don't think a good martial artist gets slept out by Weston Wilson and Anshul Jubli. But either way, though, Jeka Sergi has managed to do that, which is why I would argue he could be the GOAT of the victims list, if not for the next guy that we're going to talk about. At number 1, I got Anthony Smith. Alright, now Anthony Smith does have a couple of wins. A couple of good wins, to be specific. Like, he beat Vitor Petrino, and Vitor Petrino's not a top 15 heavyweight. That's looking pretty solid. But the problem is with Anthony Smith. He has made his signature move the armadillo guard. I've never watched an Anthony Smith fight without Smith pulling the armadillo guard out of nowhere at the first sign of adversity. And not only does he pull the armadillo guard frequently, he got victimized by Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze is awful, and Roman Dolidze is also a middleweight who fought up a weight class on 4 days' notice. If you're any sort of capable fighter, please beat Roman Dolidze, who's coming in on short notice, up a weight class on 4 days' notice. And even when he's winning, he's just incapable of harming opponents. The only time he can win a fight is if he flukes a submission out of nowhere. And outside of that, I've yet to see Anthony Smith really be capable of harming any sort of legitimate opponent. But either way, though, Anthony Smith, he is awful. All right, he is known as the greatest of all time when it comes to being victimized. In his last fight, he went out with a banger against Zhang Ming Yang, where he pulled the classic armadillo guard fetal position. And I miss Anthony Smith. You know, I wish I could see primetime Anthony Smith pull the armadillo guard one more time. But now that he's retired, I think it's safe to say that there will never be another victim quite like Anthony Smith. Moving forward, whenever I see a UFC fighter pull the armadillo guard, I'm always going to remember Anthony Smith for all of the memes. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. But otherwise, leave any comments down below what you guys think about this list, as well as any other video suggestions you have for me. But other than that, I will see you guys next time when a UFC Seattle Joe Pyfer versus Israel Adesanya just concluded. Peace.